Number 1. The foot in the door effect. Have you ever agreed to do something small, like filling out a quick form or helping a friend for just 5 minutes, and then somehow you're knee-deep in a full-blown commitment you never planned for? That's not just coincidence. It's a psychological trick called the foot in the door effect. It works by getting you to say yes to something minor, and once that mental door is open, you're far more likely to say yes to the next, bigger request. Your mind wants to stay consistent, and manipulators know how to use that against you. It's subtle. First, someone asks you to sign a petition. Next, they ask for a donation. Or maybe a friend asks you to grab one thing from the store, and next time, they ask you to do their whole shopping list. You don't notice how far you've walked until you look back. It's often used in marketing, politics, even relationships, not because it's evil, but because it works. And when you look closely, it's everywhere. So how do you defend yourself? Just slow down. When the next ask comes, take a breath and ask yourself, did I really agree to this? Or am I just following momentum? You can say, I need time to think, or that goes beyond what I was comfortable with. These small moments of awareness are powerful because every time you choose consciously, you take back the door. Number 2. The guilt mirror. Think about a time someone made you feel bad for saying no, even when you had every right to. Maybe it was subtle, a sigh, a pause, or a quiet comment like, I just thought you cared. That's the guilt mirror. It flips the blame back on you, turning your healthy boundary into something selfish. The trick works because guilt is a strong emotion, one that tells us we've done something wrong, even when we haven't. People use it to gain control without direct confrontation. Instead of asking for something honestly, they reflect discomfort back onto you. Suddenly, you're the villain for protecting your time or energy, and you start to second-guess yourself. Spotting the guilt mirror means listening to your body. Do you feel heavy after saying no? Do you find yourself apologizing too much, even when you didn't do anything wrong? That's your signal. You're being nudged, not by logic, but by emotional distortion. You can respond gently with, I understand you're disappointed, but I made the right choice for me. Or, I care, and that doesn't mean saying yes to everything. Saying no isn't cruel, it's clear, and real relationships can handle your boundaries. Remember, guilt is a mirror, not a truth, and you're allowed to look away. Number 3. The scarcity illusion. Imagine hearing the phrase, only 2 left in stock, or last chance to join. Suddenly, even if you weren't interested, your heart races. You feel like you're missing something. That's the scarcity illusion, the psychological trick that makes things seem more valuable, just because they're harder to get. Scarcity flips your brain into survival mode. It whispers, if you don't act now, you'll regret it. Whether it's a product, a person, or an opportunity, the fear of missing out hijacks your reasoning. And when something is presented as rare, we assume it must be important, even if it's not. It's less about the thing itself and more about the perceived urgency. You'll see it in flash sales, countdown timers, exclusive invites. But it also shows up in relationships, people who act distant to make themselves seem desirable or create fake deadlines to pressure you. When scarcity is manufactured, it's not about value, it's about control. Pause. Ask yourself, would I want this if it were available tomorrow? You don't need to rush into anything that pressures you. Take space, let the fog lift, because the rarest thing of all is peace of mind. Number 4. The illusion of choice. You walk into a store and see 5 brands of the same product. You feel like you're in control, making your own decision. But what if all 5 were owned by the same company? That's the illusion of choice. It gives you options that all lead to the same outcome, while making you feel like you had power. This trick is subtle and everywhere. In politics, media, shopping, even relationships, it works by limiting real options while giving the appearance of freedom. It distracts you with variety on the surface, while quietly guiding you toward a controlled decision beneath. Think about fast food, dozens of menu items, but all processed the same way, or debates that never touch the real issue, or people who say, "It's your choice," when it's clear which answer they expect. The choice is framed, but it's not really yours. So, how do you notice it? Look for patterns. Ask, who benefits no matter what I choose? If the outcomes all serve the same agenda, your freedom is being simulated, not honored. And when you can't see a real third option, try stepping back entirely, because sometimes the only real choice is to choose nothing for now. Number 5. The fear appeal. Have you ever been told, if you don't act now, something bad will happen? That's the voice of fear appeal. It's a tactic that tries to motivate behavior by painting a vivid, terrifying consequence. It doesn't reason with you, it rattles you. Fear appeals often show up in advertising, politics, or even parenting. They might say, "Buy this insurance or lose everything," or "If you don't do this, your future is in danger." The message is always urgent, emotional, and designed to bypass your logic. The scarier it feels, the quicker you act. But here's the trick: fear shuts down critical thinking. And when you're afraid, you're easier to steer. Not all fear is manipulation, but when fear is used deliberately, not to inform, but to control it, becomes a trick. It exaggerates, simplifies, and distorts until your nervous system is making decisions for you. How do you spot it? Ask yourself, is this information or intimidation? Take a step back. Let your heart settle. You don't owe anyone a decision made in panic. Real choices come from clarity, not threat. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is to stay still. Number 6. The authority effect. Why do we sometimes follow instructions, even when something feels off inside? It's often because the voice giving the instruction sounds important, or wears a uniform, or has a title. That's the authority effect, the tendency to obey perceived power, even when logic or ethics say otherwise. This effect was famously tested in psychology experiments, where people delivered what they thought were electric shocks, just because an expert told them to. Even when participants were visibly distressed, many continued because the voice wore a lab coat. Authority doesn't just suggest knowledge, it demands trust, even when it's unearned. You'll see this in cult leaders, doctors who go unquestioned, influencers selling false cures, but also in everyday life, someone who talks louder, interrupts more, or acts like they know best. The appearance of certainty makes people follow, often without checking if it's true. So how do you protect yourself? Don't confuse confidence with credibility. Ask yourself, would I follow this advice if it came from someone I didn't know? Pause. Think. True authority invites questions. It doesn't silence them. And your inner compass matters even in a room full of experts. Number 7. The anchoring trick. Picture this. You're asked how much something costs, but before you answer, you're shown a huge price tag, even if it's unrelated. Later, your guess will be closer to that number. That's the anchoring trick, a mental bias where the first number we hear shapes everything after it. Anchoring happens all the time. A hotel room says, originally 500, now 199. Suddenly, 199 feels cheap, even if it isn't. Or someone says, most people donate 100, and now your 20 seems small. The trick works because our brains latch onto the first thing they see and adjust from there. But that first thing might be totally random. It's used in salary negotiations, pricing, sales, even conversations. Someone might anchor a debate by starting with an extreme opinion just to make their real view seem reasonable. The anchor shifts your frame of reference without you noticing. How do you resist it? Reset your own anchor. Do your research before you show up. Ask yourself, what do I actually think this is worth? You don't have to play by someone else's numbers. And sometimes, the most powerful number is the one you decide for yourself. Number 8. The false urgency game. Have you ever felt rushed into making a decision, like, you must act now, or offer ends tonight? That's not timing. That's the false urgency game, a trick that pressures you with artificial deadlines to cloud your judgment. Urgency creates stress, and under stress, we skip questions, ignore red flags, and say yes just to stop the discomfort. That's the real aim, not to help you, but to hurry you. Whether it's a sales timer, a sudden last-minute offer, or a person saying, if you don't decide right now, I'll walk away. It's all a form of engineered panic. This trick is common in marketing, high-pressure sales, manipulative relationships. And it works not because it's honest, but because it triggers your survival instinct. Scarcity plus speed equals action, often without clarity. What's the antidote? Pause. Ask, if this were truly right for me, would I need to be rushed into it? A good opportunity will still be there after a breath. And if it vanishes the moment you reflect, maybe it was never real. Number 9. The decoy effect. You're choosing between two products. One is basic, one is premium. You're leaning toward the cheaper one. But then, a third option appears slightly worse than the premium and overpriced. Suddenly, the premium one feels like a great deal. That's the decoy effect, where a strategically placed third option changes your decision. The decoy is never meant to be chosen. Its job is to make another option look better by comparison. It's a sleight of hand, a psychological illusion that nudges your brain into thinking you're being rational, when really, you're being guided. It shows up in pricing models, package deals, even dating apps. Anything where one item is subtly designed to be ignored, but exists only to steer you. You think you're weighing choices, but the outcome was already predicted. How do you break the illusion? Remove the decoy in your mind. Pretend it isn't there. Now, Re-ask yourself, which one would I choose? When you subtract the trick, you get your clarity back, because real choice doesn't need padding. Number 10. The halo trap. Imagine meeting someone well-dressed and confident. You instantly assume they're smart, kind, maybe even trustworthy. That's the halo trap, where one positive trait casts a glow over everything else, even when it's not deserved. It's not just for people. A sleek product must work well. A charismatic speaker must be right. A neat room must belong to a disciplined person. The brain uses shortcuts, and the halo is one of its favorites. It saves energy, but it also distorts reality. This trick is everywhere. In job interviews, we judge by looks or voice. In relationships, we overlook red flags because someone makes us laugh. In politics, we vote for charisma over character. And often, the glow blinds us until it's too late. The fix: slow down and separate the traits. Ask, do I like this because it's truly good, or just because it feels good? The halo doesn't reveal truth. It reveals our hopes, and seeing past it helps us see people as they really are. Number 11. The familiarity comfort. Have you ever chosen something just because it felt familiar, even when better options were available? A restaurant you always go to, a brand you always buy, a person you always trust, even if they've let you down before. That's the quiet pull of familiarity comfort. It doesn't scream, it whispers, "You know this, stay here." Our brains are wired to favor the known. Familiar things require less effort to process, less risk, less unpredictability. And when we're tired, overwhelmed, or uncertain, we lean toward what's safe, even if it's subpar. That's why jingles get stuck in your head, why you rewatch the same shows, why toxic routines repeat. Comfort becomes a loop, soothing, but sometimes stagnant. This effect shows up in politics, relationships, shopping, even self-image. You might choose a familiar idea over a new truth, or stick with an unhealthy partner because it's better than starting over. Familiar doesn't mean good, it just means easy, and easy isn't always healthy. To spot this trick, notice when you're reaching for the same answer automatically. Ask yourself, am I choosing this because it's right or because it's known? You don't have to break every habit, but even noticing them gives you space. Real growth often begins where comfort ends, and unfamiliar doesn't mean unsafe. It might just mean untried. Sometimes what you're avoiding could be exactly what sets you free. Number 12. The contrast. Manipulation. Imagine someone shows you a 2000 jacket, then a 301. Suddenly, 300 feels cheap, even if it's overpriced. That's contrast manipulation. When perception changes based on what came before, it's not the item, it's the comparison that warps your judgment. The brain loves shortcuts. Instead of evaluating each thing on its own, we compare. But those comparisons can be rigged. Salespeople show the expensive version first. A toxic boss praises you only after yelling. A partner withdraws affection, then offers a small gesture, and suddenly, that feels like love. The trick is, nothing changed, except the backdrop. This manipulation shapes what we buy, how we feel, and even who we trust. The same gift can feel thoughtful or cold, depending on what came before. A relationship can feel good or bad, not based on its truth, but on what it's being measured against. To defend yourself, separate the thing from its context. Ask, if I hadn't seen the first example, would I still choose this one? Try to view choices in isolation, not as reactions. That clarity breaks the illusion. Life isn't a showroom of extremes, and sometimes the middle option only looks right because you were shown the wrong things first. Don't just choose based on contrast. Choose based on the truth. Number 13. The mirror neuron hijack. You see someone cry, and your own eyes water. You watch someone yawn, and suddenly, you yawn too. That's your mirror neurons. At work, the part of your brain that reflects what others feel. But in the wrong hands, those neurons can be hijacked. We are built for empathy. Mirror neurons let us sense joy, pain, tension, even without a word. That's why emotions spread through crowds. Why watching someone angry makes you feel tense. Or why a calm voice can lower your pulse. But this reflex can be used against you to manipulate, guilt, sell, or silence. Charismatic manipulators mirror your tone, your body language. They mimic what you need to gain your trust. And once you sync up emotionally, you drop your guard. Their emotions become yours even if they're not real. You're reacting to a performance, not a person. The trick isn't always malicious. Sometimes it's automatic. But when used strategically, it creates false connection and power imbalance. To spot it, notice when your feelings shift quickly around someone. Ask, is this mine or is it theirs? Create space. Take a moment alone. Let your own emotions settle before you respond, because not every feeling you feel belongs to you. And reclaiming your emotional space, that's how you regain control. Number 14. The reciprocity pressure. Someone gives you a free gift. You didn't ask for it, but now you feel like you owe them. That's the power of reciprocity. We're wired to return favors, and that can be used to trap us. In healthy relationships, reciprocity builds trust, but manipulators exploit it. They offer unsolicited help or compliments, not out of generosity, but to make you feel indebted. I did this for you becomes a silent hook. Now you feel guilty saying no. You didn't agree to the exchange, but it's been assigned to you. You see it in sales, free samples that lead to guilt purchases, or a friend who helps you once, then expects you to always return the favor. The trick works because our social instincts are strong. We want to be fair, kind, generous, but that doesn't mean you owe everyone a yes. To escape reciprocity pressure, pause. Ask yourself, did I ask for this? And am I being guilted into something I didn't agree to? Saying no doesn't make you ungrateful. It makes you intentional. Kindness shouldn't come with strings, and you are allowed to receive without repayment, especially when the gift was never about giving in the first place. Number 15. The spotlight effect. Ever walked into a room and felt like everyone was watching you? Like every word, every outfit, every mistake was being judged? That's the spotlight effect. It makes us believe we're at the center of everyone's attention, when really, most people aren't thinking about us at all. Our minds magnify our visibility. We think others notice every awkward pause, every stain, every stutter. But in truth, most people are focused on themselves. They're worrying about their own flaws, their own spotlight. It's a loop of imagined judgment projected onto mirrors that aren't even facing us. This effect can make us anxious, self-critical, even avoidant. We replay moments in our minds long after everyone else has moved on. We assume people remember our worst moments when they often didn't even notice. The way out? Remember, people are living inside their own minds, not yours. The audience you fear is mostly a fiction. Try asking yourself, what if no one noticed? That soft thought can bring deep relief. You don't have to perform. You don't have to explain. You're allowed to just be, because while you're under your own spotlight, others are under theirs. And sometimes, turning off the imaginary stage light is the most peaceful thing you can do. Number 16. The social proof loop. You're choosing a restaurant, scrolling through reviews, and notice one has thousands of 5-star ratings. You don't know if it's good, but everyone else seems to love it, so you follow the crowd. That's the social proof loop. When uncertain, we look to others to decide what's right. Social proof isn't inherently bad. It helps us navigate the unknown. If everyone's running from a building, it's probably smart to follow. But in daily life, this instinct can be hijacked. We assume popularity equals value, that likes equal truth, that visibility equals credibility. But what if the crowd is just as confused? This trick shows up in viral posts, product trends, even dangerous ideologies. The more something is seen, the more it's copied. And the more it's copied, the more it's believed. It creates a loop, a spiral of influence feeding itself. How do you step out of it? Notice when your reasoning is, everyone else is doing it. Ask, do I want this? Or do I just not want to feel left out? Take a breath. Sometimes the crowd is right, but not always. Truth isn't a vote, and peace doesn't come from popularity. You don't have to follow. You don't even have to decide right away. You're allowed to trust your own pace, even in a world running fast. Number 17. The too much too soon trap. Ever met someone who shared everything right away, their trauma, their dreams, their love, before you even knew their last name? It can feel intense, exciting, maybe even special, but sometimes it's a trap. That's the too much too soon tactic when emotional intimacy is fast-tracked to bypass real connection. In relationships, early vulnerability can seem authentic, but when rushed, it's often a tactic to manufacture closeness, to create trust before trust is earned. Suddenly, you feel bonded, you feel responsible, and questioning it feels cruel because they've shared so much. This trick shows up in manipulative dynamics, love bombing, trauma dumping. You're the only one who gets me. It's not about knowing you, it's about securing you. It overwhelms your boundaries before they've even had time to form. To protect yourself, pay attention to pacing. Real intimacy grows in layers, not explosions. Ask yourself, have we actually built trust, or have I just been emotionally flooded? You can slow things down. You can say, let's take time to get to know each other. That doesn't make you distant, it makes you wise. Not every fast connection is fake, but speed isn't proof of truth. And love, like anything real, deserves time to breathe. Number 18. The availability distortion. Why do people fear plane crashes more than car accidents? Or worry about rare diseases they saw in a movie, but ignore everyday health risks? That's the availability distortion. Our brains, give more weight to what's vivid, not what's likely. If something is easy to recall, dramatic, emotional, repeated, it feels more real. News stories, shocking headlines, personal anecdotes, they hijack our perception of probability. Your brain thinks, if I can picture it clearly, it must happen often. But that's not how reality works. That's how fear works. This trick skews decisions. We overestimate danger, underestimate risk. We prepare for what's scary instead of what's smart. Politicians use it, marketers use it, even our own memories use it. The result? We plan for the exception and miss the rule. To ground yourself, ask, is this common or just memorable? Look at the data, balance emotion with logic, and if something terrifies you instantly, pause, breathe. Remind yourself that clarity and impact are not the same thing. The loudest fear isn't always the truest one, and learning to filter noise brings peace that's quieter but stronger. Number 19. The just this once excuse. One extra snack, one skipped workout, one call you don't return. Just this once, you say, but then it happens again and again. That's the slippery trick of just this once. It makes every exception seem harmless until the exceptions become the pattern. This phrase doesn't sound manipulative. It sounds gentle, forgiving. It lets you break a rule without guilt. And sometimes that's okay. We all need flexibility. But repeated too often, it becomes a loophole, a way to delay, avoid, self-sabotage without admitting it out loud. You'll hear it in habits, addictions, unhealthy relationships. I'll stay one more night. I'll lie just this once. I'll forgive it this time. But each just once chips away at your integrity, your goals, your peace. The cost is cumulative. To defend yourself, track the phrase. Ask, have I said this before? If you hear it often, it's no longer a one-time thing. Set clear intentions, not emotional loopholes. And when you do choose an exception, do it with awareness, not as a way to avoid the truth. You're not weak for slipping, but you are strong when you notice it. And naming the excuse is how you break its spell. Number 20. The default bias. Ever stuck with a setting just because it came that way? Accepted terms you didn't read, chose the pre-selected option without thinking. That's the default bias, the mental shortcut that makes us stick with whatever is already chosen for us. Defaults are powerful. They feel safe, easy, normal, but they're rarely neutral. They reflect someone else's decision, a company's, a designer's, a system's. When we don't make an active choice, we're still choosing, just passively. This bias shows up in tech, healthcare, insurance, even morality. Organ donor programs with opt-out defaults have higher participation than opt-in. People eat more when plates are large. They accept invasive permissions because the box was already checked. To spot it, look for pre-filled forms, auto-selected plans, routines you never questioned. Ask, is this what I want, or just what was already there? Choosing intentionally, even when you keep the default, gives power back to you. You don't have to change everything, but noticing what's been chosen for you is the first step to choosing for yourself. Number 21. The empathy switch. You've seen it happen. Someone cold and detached suddenly becomes warm, concerned, and understanding right when it benefits them. That's the empathy switch. It's not real empathy, it's strategic emotion, turned on and off like a light. Empathy is powerful. It builds connection, trust, and intimacy. But when someone controls it, like a faucet, using it only to diffuse conflict, regain favor, or manipulate outcomes, it stops being genuine. It becomes a tactic. And when someone can switch it on to charm and off to hurt you, that's not emotional depth, that's emotional control. You might notice it after a fight suddenly. They're soft, remorseful, or when they want something, the kindness floods in. But later, when you need support, they're cold again. Their warmth has conditions, and that pattern teaches you to chase the switch, to behave a certain way, just to keep their empathy alive. To protect yourself, track consistency. Does their care remain even when you disappoint them? Or does it disappear the moment you set a boundary? True empathy doesn't blink in and out. It stays steady, even in discomfort. You're not asking for too much. You're asking for realness. And the people who can sit with your pain, not just their needs, are the ones who've earned a place in your peace. Number 22. The gaslight spiral. You remember what happened. You felt it. You saw it. But now, someone tells you it wasn't real. They say, "You're too sensitive," or "You're imagining things." That's gaslighting, a psychological trick that makes you doubt your own memory, emotions, and sanity. It starts small, a denial here, a contradiction there. Then it grows. You bring up an issue, and somehow it's your fault. You catch a lie, and they twist the story. Over time, you stop trusting your own mind. You ask, "Am I crazy?" when really, you're just being spun. The gaslight spiral deepens as you begin to rely on them for the truth because yours feels unstable. It isolates you, makes you second-guess your instincts, and chips away at your self-worth. And the worst part? You start apologizing for things you didn't do. To break the spiral, return to evidence, write things down, talk to someone you trust, remind yourself your reality is valid, your feelings are real, and memory doesn't become false just because someone wants it to be. A person who loves you won't rewrite your truth. They'll hold space for it even when it's uncomfortable. Trust your perception. You're not broken. You're being manipulated. And naming the gaslight is how you find the flame again. Number 23. The shame lever. You're not a good friend if you don't help. Real men don't cry. A good daughter would never say that. These aren't just judgments. They're shame levers, manipulative pressure points designed to make you conform by attacking your core identity. Shame is powerful. It hits below the surface, not at what you've done, but at who you are. The shame lever works by framing your resistance as a failure of character. If you say no, you're selfish. If you express anger, you're unstable. The goal isn't to correct behavior, it's to control your sense of self. This trick is common in families, cultures, workplaces, and relationships. It's disguised as just being honest, but its real function is silence. If you feel bad enough, you'll fold. If you fear rejection enough, you'll obey. To resist it, listen to your inner voice. Ask, is this actually wrong? Or am I just being shamed? into submission. Set boundaries, even when it feels uncomfortable. Say, "That may be your belief, but it's not my truth." You're allowed to disagree and still be good. You're allowed to choose yourself without guilt. And the next time someone tries to press that lever, remember, shame only sticks when you believe the lie beneath it. Number 24. The love bomb trap. It starts like a dream. Constant compliments, deep conversations, big promises, fast commitment. You feel seen, wanted, chosen. But then just as quickly it shifts. That's the love bomb trap. Love bombing floods your senses with attention and affection. It builds intensity, not intimacy. You're swept into closeness so quickly, you skip the slow work of trust. The highs are addictive. And when the compliments fade, you start chasing them. When the warmth turns cold, you blame yourself. This trick is common in narcissistic relationships. It's used to create dependency. If someone gives you the emotional world overnight, then pulls it back unless you behave, that's not love. That's leverage. It's also confusing because the feelings felt real, and some of them were. But speed isn't depth, and intensity isn't truth. Ask, is this love or performance? Look for consistency, not passion. Look for quiet care, not grand gestures. You don't owe anyone your heart just because they handed you theirs in a hurry. Real connection doesn't demand fireworks. It makes room for silence. And trust that grows slowly often lasts longest. Number 25. The silent treatment game. You text, no reply. You speak, they stare past you. You ask what's wrong, they say nothing, but everything feels cold. That's the silent treatment game, not quiet for peace, but silence used to punish and control. This trick works by creating emotional tension. You're left guessing, overthinking, apologizing sometimes for things you didn't even do. The silence isn't calm, it's a weapon, and it teaches you a dangerous message, that love can be withdrawn like oxygen. Silent treatment is not the same as needing space. It's a pattern of emotional withholding where one person punishes the other through disconnection. It creates anxiety, dependence, and fear of abandonment. And, worst of all, it feels like your fault. To counter it, name it. Say, I'm noticing a pattern where silence replaces communication. I won't respond to punishment disguised as distance. If the other person truly needs space, they'll say so with kindness. If it's manipulation, they'll avoid responsibility. You are allowed to ask for communication. You are allowed to not chase silence. And when someone goes quiet to gain power, that's not love, that's control. And your voice deserves to be met, not muted. Number 26. The cold read trick. You're the kind of person who hides your pain, but cares deeply, right? They say something vague, yet it feels personal, accurate, specific. That's the cold read trick. When someone makes general statements sound intimate to gain your trust. Cold reading is used by psychics, con artists, manipulative partners, anyone who wants influence without truly knowing you. The trick lies in saying things that apply to nearly everyone. You've been hurt before, or you're not always confident. Most people nod. It feels uncanny, but it's not magic. It's psychology. The more you react, the more they refine. They watch your eyes, your posture, your breath. Then they mirror your emotions back to you. You feel seen. But they're not reading your soul, they're reading your cues. You'll find it in sales, online dating, even in cult initiation tactics. The goal is emotional fast-tracking. If they can convince you they understand you deeply, you'll listen more, trust more, give more. To protect yourself, slow the moment down. Ask, could this apply to almost anyone? Notice if they're doing most of the talking, or if you're filling in the blanks. True understanding takes time. Cold reading skips the process. It fakes intimacy. And you never owe trust to someone who hasn't earned it. Insight isn't something given, it's something grown. Number 27. The passive-aggressive ping. They don't say it outright. Instead, it's a sigh, a backhanded compliment, a sarcastic jab that lands just wrong. That's a passive-aggressive ping. Not loud, not direct, but sharp enough to sting. This trick works by hiding hostility in politeness. It lets someone express resentment without taking responsibility for it. I guess you're just always too busy for me. Well, some of us don't have the luxury of rest. You're left unsure, did they mean it? Should you respond? And that confusion creates tension. Passive aggression thrives in relationships where open conflict feels unsafe. But over time, these pings become poison. They chip away at closeness, making you feel like you're always walking on emotional eggshells. You'll find it in friendships, family dynamics, work environments. It often starts with small things, but grows when unaddressed. The passive-aggressive person avoids discomfort by passing it on to you. The key is to name it gently. Say, "That felt a little pointed. Was something bothering you?" Don't mirror it. Don't escalate. Stay grounded. If they dodge accountability, you'll know it wasn't accidental. And remember, healthy relationships allow directness. You're not too sensitive. You're just tuned in. And noticing the ping is how you break the pattern. Number 28. The projection maneuver. They accuse you of being jealous when they're the one acting insecure. They call you controlling right after crossing a boundary. That's the projection maneuver, blaming you for feelings or behaviors that are actually theirs. Projection is the mind's way of offloading discomfort. Instead of facing their own flaws, people push them onto others. If they're angry but can't admit it, they say, "You're the one overreacting." If they're feeling guilty, they say you've been distant. It's a reversal, and it makes you question your reality. You'll see it most clearly in conflict. The more intense their reaction, the more likely it's not about you, but it's easy to internalize. You start wondering, maybe I am the problem. That's how projection works. It distorts truth through defense. To respond, stay calm. Reflect back what's real. Say, "That doesn't match my experience. Let's talk about what's actually going on." If they keep pushing, take space. You can't reason with someone who won't look inward. And most importantly, don't absorb what doesn't belong to you. Their storm isn't your weather. Their fear isn't your flaw. And their projections, you don't have to carry them. Number 29. The identity erosion. At first, it's subtle. Maybe don't wear that. You're too sensitive. You used to be fun. Slowly, piece by piece, you begin to question who you are. That's identity erosion, a slow dismantling of your sense of self. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a drip, a tone, 1,000 small corrections framed as love or help. The goal? To make you moldable, to make you rely on someone else's definition of who you should be. And over time, your voice gets quieter, your choices feel smaller. You might stop wearing what you love, stop sharing your opinions, start asking permission for things you used to do freely, not because someone demanded it, but because their reactions trained you. You're trying to avoid criticism, keep the peace, stay acceptable, but the cost is heavy, because the more you shrink, the more you forget who you are, and the longer you stay, the harder it feels to return. To reclaim yourself, start small. Ask, what did I love before I started editing myself? Say, this is me, not a version shaped by fear. You don't owe anyone your erasure, and anyone who asks for it isn't loving you. They're reshaping you. You are allowed to be whole. You are allowed to be loud, and your identity isn't up for negotiation. Number 30, the martyr complex. They're always sacrificing, always suffering, always putting others first and reminding you of it. That's the martyr complex. It looks like selflessness, but it often hides resentment, control, or unmet needs. Martyrs thrive on giving, but not freely. They give with expectations. After all I've done for you becomes a common refrain. They expect gratitude, obedience, or guilt in return. And if you don't respond how they hoped, they hurt loudly or silently. This trick manipulates through morality. You feel bad for wanting boundaries. You feel selfish for saying no. Because how could you deny someone who sacrificed so much? But true giving isn't transactional. And real love doesn't need a scoreboard. You'll find this dynamic in family roles, romantic relationships, even workplaces. It's often passed down, praised, and repeated, especially in cultures that glorify self-denial. To respond, express appreciation, but don't reward guilt tactics. Say, I value your support, but I need space to choose for myself. If they react with pain or blame, you're seeing the complex, not just the person. And remember, you're not unkind for wanting reciprocity. You're not cold for needing balance. You're human, and real connection isn't built on quiet suffering, but mutual care. Number 31, the triangulation trap. You bring up an issue with someone, and suddenly, a third person is involved. They agree with me. Everyone thinks you're overreacting. Or worse, they tell others about you behind your back. That's the triangulation trap, creating sides in a conflict to gain control. Triangulation shifts attention away from the issue and onto other people's opinions. It's no longer about resolving, it's about winning. By invoking an invisible they, the manipulator adds pressure and isolates you. Now, it's not just them, it's a crowd, and you're left feeling outnumbered, unstable, and wrong. In families, it sounds like your brother thinks you're selfish. In relationships, it's even my ex never acted like this. In workplaces, gossip becomes leverage, turning individuals against each other, while the manipulator sits in the center, untouched. The goal is to avoid direct accountability, to make you question your reality, to keep control by dividing connection. The antidote: refuse to play. Say, let's keep this between us. If others are mentioned, ask, can we invite them in to clarify? that will often reveal the manipulation. Healthy conflict stays between the people involved, and peace doesn't need a jury. It needs courage, clarity, and two people willing to face the truth, not weaponize others against it. Number 32. The broken record technique. You say no. They ask again. You explain. They ask again. You repeat yourself, but nothing changes. That's the broken record technique. Repeating the same request until your resistance wears down. It doesn't sound forceful. It sounds persistent, calm, reasonable. I'm just asking. But beneath that tone is pressure. The trick works not through logic, but through fatigue. The more you defend your choice, the more exhausting it gets. Eventually, you say yes, just to end the conversation. This tactic is often used in toxic dynamics where boundaries are seen as negotiable. It teaches you that no isn't enough, that you must always explain, justify, perform your refusal. You might hear, "But why not?" or "Just this once," again and again. Over time, it makes you feel guilty for holding a line like peace depends on your surrender. To break the cycle, shift the script. Say, "I've already answered, and I won't be repeating myself." You're allowed to be firm. You're allowed to walk away. You don't need to convince someone who doesn't want to understand. And remember, your boundary is valid the first time, not because they accept it, but because you decided it. Number 33. The enabler illusion. They always support them, always cover for them, always smooth things over. And you think, they're just kind, but sometimes they're not helping. They're enabling. That's the enabler illusion, when helping becomes harm in disguise. Enablers keep the peace, but at what cost? They protect the person causing harm while silencing the one being hurt. They say, "They didn't mean it," or "Let's not make this a big deal." They encourage forgiveness before accountability, comfort before truth. The illusion is that they're neutral, that they're peacemakers, but really, they uphold dysfunction, and their softness becomes a wall you can't get through. You'll find them in toxic family systems, codependent relationships, even friend groups, where silence becomes loyalty. They mean well often deeply, but intention doesn't erase impact. To respond, shift your focus. Don't try to convince the enabler. Speak your truth clearly, then protect your own boundary. If they dismiss it, that's not neutrality, that's complicity. And you don't have to fight for someone to see the harm if they keep choosing comfort over clarity. You're allowed to name what's real. You're allowed to walk away from those who deny your pain. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do is stop enabling the enabler. Number 34. The jealousy seed. They casually mention someone else, praise someone else, flirt near you, and watch your face closely. That's the jealousy seed, planting insecurity to gain control. This tactic works by making you feel less than, not directly, but through suggestion. They're just a friend. You're so sensitive. You should trust me. Meanwhile, your gut tightens because something feels off. But when you speak up, they call it paranoia. Jealousy, when natural, is human. But when manufactured, it becomes a weapon. The goal is to create competition, to make you doubt your worth. and to shift the power dynamic in their favor where you seek reassurance, and they decide when to give it. It's used in romantic relationships, workplaces, even friendships. Anywhere insecurity can be turned into leverage. And the worst part? It teaches you to tolerate discomfort just to keep their attention. To defend yourself, honor your instincts. Say, "That felt intentional, and I won't ignore it." You're not crazy for noticing patterns. You're clear. And you're allowed to want respect without manipulation. Real love doesn't require jealousy to stay interesting, and anyone who plants seeds of doubt isn't tending to your heart. Number 35. The vulnerability vortex. You share something soft, a fear, a story, a wound, and instead of holding it gently, they use it later, in a fight, in sarcasm, in silence. That's the vulnerability vortex, when what you share becomes ammunition. This trick doesn't always look sharp. It can feel like closeness at first. They ask deep questions. They listen well. You open up, and it feels safe. But later, your honesty gets turned back on you. You're always like this. You said you were broken. This is why no one stays. It creates fear, not of conflict, but of intimacy. You learn to guard your heart, to overthink every word, because you're not sure what will be held and what will be used. This tactic is common in manipulative relationships. It trains you to self-abandon, to be emotionally present, but never fully real. And over time, your walls grow higher, even in good relationships. To protect yourself, watch what they do with your honesty. Do they hold it? Weaponize it? Ignore it? You're allowed to share, but slowly, with those who prove themselves safe. Vulnerability is sacred, and anyone who twists it never deserved to hear it in the first place. Number 36. The threat of abandonment. You bring up something that hurt you, and suddenly they go quiet. They leave. Or they say something like, "Maybe this just isn't working." That's the threat of abandonment, a tactic that uses your fear of being left to shut down your truth. It doesn't always look cruel. Sometimes it's subtle, a shift in tone, a door closing, a message left unread, but the effect is the same. You're left wondering, did I just ruin everything by speaking up? And next time, you stay quiet. This trick weaponizes attachment. It turns love into a hostage situation where safety depends on silence. And over time, you shrink. You walk on eggshells. You censor yourself, not to protect the relationship, but to avoid the threat of losing it. Healthy love doesn't vanish when things get hard. It stays, listens, works through discomfort. If someone uses leaving as a way to win, they're not protecting the relationship, they're controlling it. To respond, take a breath. Ask, is this connection based on truth or fear? You deserve to express your needs without being punished. You deserve presence, not pressure. And real love doesn't make you choose between honesty and being held. Number 37. The invalidation whisper. You're overreacting. It's not that big of a deal. You always take things too personally. That's the invalidation whisper. It doesn't scream. It just slowly teaches you that your feelings don't matter. This trick isn't loud. It's casual. A shrug, a laugh, a glance. It tells you your pain is exaggerated. Your joy is silly. Your needs are too much, and over time, you start believing it. You stop trusting your own emotional signals. Invalidation often comes wrapped in logic, as if calmness is correctness. But tone isn't truth, and being composed doesn't mean you're right. Sometimes the quietest voices do the most damage. You'll hear it in relationships, in families, in workspaces. It shows up in phrases like, "You're too sensitive," or "You just want attention." It makes you doubt whether what you felt was ever real. To break free, name what's real. Say, "I don't need agreement. I need understanding." You're not wrong for feeling deeply. You're not broken for needing space. And your emotions don't need permission to exist. Validation isn't about fixing. It's about being seen. And anyone who dismisses your inner world doesn't deserve to shape it. Number 38. The smokescreen argument. You bring up a real issue calmly, clearly, and somehow the topic shifts. Suddenly, they're accusing you or arguing about something completely different. That's the smokescreen argument, a tactic that distracts from the truth by creating emotional chaos. This trick works by clouding clarity. You say, "That hurt me," and they say, "You're just trying to control me." Or you point out a pattern, and they dig up your past mistakes. The goal isn't resolution, it's confusion. They want the spotlight off the issue, so they distort, deflect, derail. It feels like the conversation is still happening, but nothing gets solved. You leave the argument drained, doubting yourself, and wondering what just happened. This is common in toxic dynamics, especially with people who fear accountability. It's a defense disguised as discussion, but underneath it all, it's avoidance. To respond, stay centered. Say, "We're getting off topic. I'd like to return to what I was saying." If they refuse, walk away. You don't owe anyone your energy if they're not showing up with truth. A real conversation stays on the table. It doesn't disappear in smoke, and you deserve to be heard, not hustled. Number 39. The weaponized insecurity. They know your soft spots, the things you told them in confidence. And when you're most vulnerable, they use those things against you. That's weaponized insecurity, when your deepest truths become tools for control. It's a betrayal dressed in familiarity. You said you're sensitive about your appearance, and now it's mocked during arguments. You mentioned your fear of being alone, and now it's used to keep you quiet. What once felt like intimacy becomes a blade. This tactic is about power, not support, not healing. It teaches you that honesty leads to harm, and that safety is something you have to earn by staying small, agreeable, contained. You'll see it in manipulative partners, toxic friendships, even family roles. The weapon is always something you gave willingly, and the damage is silent. Because now, you don't just fear judgment, you fear your own truth being used against you. To break the cycle, watch what happens after you open up. Do they hold it gently or throw it later? You're allowed to set limits. You're allowed to stop sharing. You're even allowed to walk away. Because vulnerability should be honored, not stored as ammunition. And your soft spots deserve protection, not punishment. Number 40. The empath's dilemma. You feel everything. You notice the pain in others before they speak, and you try to help, even when it costs you. That's the gift of the empath, but it can also be the trap. The empath's dilemma is this: where does compassion end and self-neglect begin? You care deeply, you give often, but sometimes you give until there's nothing left, and the people around you, they keep taking. Manipulators are drawn to empaths, not because empaths are weak, but because they're open. Empaths see the wound beneath the anger, the fear behind the cruelty, and instead of setting boundaries, they try to heal it all. But healing doesn't mean holding everyone's pain. It doesn't mean saying yes out of guilt or love that's not returned. The moment you abandon yourself for someone else's comfort, you're not empathizing, you're disappearing. To find balance, ask yourself, am I helping or absorbing? Say, I can care without carrying. Set soft boundaries, give with clarity, and remember, your empathy is powerful, but only when it includes you. You don't have to feel everything to love. You don't have to fix everything to be good. Sometimes, the kindest thing you can do is protect your own peace. Number 41. The groupthink spiral. You're in a group, and everyone agrees. Even if something feels wrong, no one speaks up, and slowly, you start to doubt your own voice. That's the groupthink spiral, where the desire to fit in overrides the need to speak truth. Groupthink works by rewarding conformity. When the majority agrees, disagreement feels like betrayal. You don't want to be that person, so you go along nodding, smiling, suppressing discomfort until the lie becomes the room's reality. It happens in boardrooms, classrooms, families, even online. Ideas that go unchallenged grow roots, and when everyone agrees, no one checks if they're right. The problem isn't just bad decisions, it's the silence that follows them. Injustice goes unspoken, wisdom gets ignored, and individuals lose their sense of agency, one nod at a time. To break the spiral, pause and ask, do I believe this, or do I just not want to stand out? If something feels off, say, I'd like to offer another angle. It doesn't have to be loud, just true. You're not difficult for thinking differently. You're valuable. And sometimes, one quiet question is all it takes to wake the room. Number 42. The pluralistic ignorance trap. You look around, unsure what to do. Everyone else seems fine, so you stay silent. But what if they're thinking the same thing? That's the pluralistic ignorance trap, where everyone misunderstands each other's silence as agreement. This bias shows up when people hide their true thoughts because they assume others disagree. You don't ask the question in class. You don't raise a concern in the meeting. You don't check in during a crisis. Not because you don't care, but because you assume no one else does. It becomes a loop. Everyone stays quiet, assuming everyone else is okay, and so nothing changes, even when everyone secretly wants it to. This trap is especially dangerous in cultures of shame, pressure, or hierarchy. People are afraid to be first, to be wrong, to be exposed, so the room stays silent even if it's full of doubt. To step out of it, be the one who breaks the illusion. Ask, am I the only one wondering about this? Often, you'll find others breathe easier once someone speaks. Your confusion isn't weakness. Your voice isn't disruption. And silence doesn't always mean agreement sometimes. It's a call for courage. Number 43. The in-group, out-group trick. You feel included until you don't. Accepted until you disagree. Loved as long as you stay the same. That's the in-group, out-group trick, where identity is used to create control. This trick works by dividing the world into us and them. It makes you feel safe inside the group as long as you conform, but question the rules, and suddenly you're on the outside. It's not always said directly, but the message is clear: belong or be left behind. It shows up in politics, religion, friend groups, even families. The group praises loyalty, but punishes individuality. It gives a sense of unity, but only to those who don't disrupt the script. This dynamic plays on a deep human need to belong, but the cost is authenticity. You start to edit yourself, agree when you don't, stay silent when you should speak, not to lie, but to stay included. To resist it, ask, would they still accept me if I disagreed? If not, it's not love, it's leverage. True connection allows difference. Real belonging doesn't require a costume. You don't have to change who you are to be part of something real. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is step out of the circle to find yourself. Number 44. The bystander effect. Someone collapses in a crowd. Everyone sees it, but no one moves. You wait, assuming someone else will help. They wait, assuming the same. That's the bystander effect, where responsibility diffuses until no one takes action. This isn't because people are cruel. It's because they're unsure. We look to others for cues. If no one reacts, we assume it's not urgent. But the more people present, the less likely any one person is to step in. This trick of the mind turns emergencies into silence. We hesitate, not because we don't care, but because we assume someone else will. And in that delay, harm continues. The bystander effect happens in public spaces, but also in social injustice, bullying, toxic workplaces. People see the problem, but no one wants to be first. To undo it, personalize the moment. Think, if no one helps, I will. Even asking someone directly, can you help me with this, breaks the freeze. One action inspires the next. Silence isn't neutrality, it's complicity. And sometimes, the smallest step, a word, a gesture, a question, can start a wave. Number 45. The social loafing mirage. You're in a group project, 10 people on the task, but only 3 actually doing the work. And somehow, everyone thinks they're pulling their weight. That's the social loafing mirage, when group settings reduce individual effort. In large groups, responsibility gets diluted. People assume someone else will pick up the slack. Motivation drops, accountability fades, and the whole becomes less than the sum of its parts. The illusion is, my effort doesn't matter here. This happens in teams, organizations, volunteer work, even friendships. The more people involved, the easier it is to hide. Not always out of laziness, but because contribution feels invisible. It's a mirage, because everyone thinks they're doing enough. But when everyone thinks that, nothing gets done. And those who care most often carry the weight until burnout or resentment follows. To counter it, define roles clearly, acknowledge individual effort, and if you notice the pattern, speak up not with blame, but with clarity. Say, here's what I've noticed. How can we rebalance this? Your energy matters whether in a crowd or alone, and true collaboration isn't about numbers, it's about shared intention. Number 46. The obedience reflex. A person in uniform gives you a command. You follow it without questioning, not because it feels right, but because it feels like you have no choice. That's the obedience reflex, when authority bypasses thought. This trick doesn't need force. It uses symbols, badges, titles, tone. The more official someone seems, the more likely we are to follow. It starts in childhood, is reinforced in schools, and carries into workplaces, politics, and institutions. The unspoken rule becomes, don't challenge those in charge. But authority isn't always wisdom, and power isn't always right. History is full of people who followed orders blindly believing they weren't responsible because they were just doing what they were told. Obedience feels safe. It takes the burden off. But unchecked, it creates harm. It turns people into tools. It excuses cruelty, and it silences doubt. To resist it, pause. Ask, if this command came from someone else, would I still follow it? Authority should be earned, not assumed, and respect shouldn't cancel reasoning. You're allowed to ask questions, even when it's uncomfortable. You're allowed to trust your conscience even when others don't. And obedience without awareness is surrender without consent. Number 47. The moral credential trick. I've done good things, so I can't be the problem. That's the voice of the moral credential trick, when past virtue is used as a shield against present accountability. This trick shows up when someone says, I have friends from that group, or I've always been supportive. The message underneath is, I'm a good person, so my current behavior can't be questioned. It weaponizes morality, turns reputation into immunity. You'll hear it in conversations about race, gender, ethics, politics. Someone says something harmful, but deflects criticism by pointing to their history. They've earned the right to be unexamined. The problem? No one is beyond reflection. Doing something kind yesterday doesn't excuse doing something cruel today. And using your past good as currency isn't goodness, it's leverage. To spot it, listen for defensiveness, wrapped in virtue. Ask, is this person open to growth or hiding behind past actions? You're allowed to question people who once helped you. You're allowed to evolve, even if it challenges those who once did good. Morality isn't a badge you wear once. It's a mirror you keep checking. And true integrity never stops listening. Number 48. The herd mentality hack. Everyone's running. Everyone's posting. Everyone's doing it, so it must be right. Right? That's the herd mentality hack. When action follows the crowd, not clarity. This bias runs deep. In uncertain moments, we look to others. Their panic becomes ours. Their choices become our compass. It's efficient, but dangerous. Because the herd doesn't always know where it's going. You'll see it in market bubbles, in viral trends, in cancel culture. One person reacts, others follow, and soon, a stampede forms. Often without anyone stopping to ask, why are we doing this? The herd offers comfort, belonging, safety in numbers, but it can also sweep you into harm or simply away from your truth. To resist the pull, slow down, step back, ask, would I do this if no one else was? Or am I acting or echoing. You're not weak for following, but you are powerful when you pause. Not every path is yours to walk, and not every movement is wise. Sometimes the bravest thing is to stand still while the crowd runs. Number 49. The echo chamber effect. You scroll through your feed, and everyone agrees with you. Same opinions, same outrage, same language. It feels comforting, but also blinding. That's the echo chamber effect, when your world becomes a reflection of your beliefs. Echo chambers form when algorithms, friendships, or communities filter out disagreement. The more you engage with one side, the more you see it. And soon, you start believing, this is how everyone thinks. But disagreement hasn't disappeared. It's just been silenced. This trick feels like truth, but it's really repetition. The same ideas echoed back, louder each time. You become less curious, less open, less equipped to hear anything new. The chamber protects, but it also isolates. To escape it, seek out respectful disagreement. Read broadly. Ask, what might I be missing? Curiosity doesn't mean betrayal. It means growth. You're not fragile for questioning. You're not disloyal for listening. And truth doesn't need a cage, it needs a window. Number 50. The normative pressure push. Everyone seems okay with it, so you say yes, even when your stomach says no. That's the normative pressure push, the invisible force that makes us conform to what feels normal. This trick doesn't shout. It hums in the background. It tells you, this is just how things are. It's why people stay quiet when rules feel wrong, why they go along with things they never truly chose. Because standing out feels scarier than staying silent. You'll feel it in culture, in relationships, in habits you never questioned. Why do you do it this way? Because everyone else does. That's the lie. That's the push. Normative pressure doesn't just control behavior, it shapes identity. It tells you who to be by showing you who not to be. To break the spell, ask, is this my choice or the crowd's? You don't have to be loud, just real. One small no can shift everything. You're allowed to question what's common. You're allowed to choose what's right. And normal isn't always natural. Number 51. The false consensus bias. You believe something deeply, and without realizing it, you assume most people do too. That's the false consensus bias, the illusion that your thoughts are more widely shared than they really are. It's comforting to believe others think like you. It makes your worldview feel stable. But this bias creates a trap. It blinds you to difference, nuance, and new information because you expect others to already agree. It shows up in conversations where we say, everyone knows that, or most people would say, without evidence. It shows up when we assume our social circle represents the world. It shows up when we confuse familiarity with universality. The danger? When you think everyone agrees with you, you stop listening. You underestimate opposition. You overestimate support. And in relationships, it can lead to disappointment when people react in ways you didn't expect. To break it, ask, how do I know this is a majority view? Seek data, not assumptions. Talk to people outside your bubble. You don't have to change your belief. Just hold space for the idea that others might not share it. Awareness expands reality. and clarity begins where assumption ends. Number 52. The outrage bait. You see a headline that makes your blood boil. You read a post so infuriating you have to comment. You're not alone, and that's the point. That's the outrage bait, content crafted to provoke, not inform. This trick thrives online. It uses emotional hooks, moral violations, exaggerated stories, half-truths to trigger your sense of justice. Because once you're angry, you're engaged. You click, you share, you argue, you become part of the storm, and the algorithm rewards it. Outrage feels righteous, but it also makes you reactive. It shortcuts your thinking, narrows your perspective, and drains your energy. And the worst part? Often, the thing that triggered you wasn't even true. You'll find this bait in politics, tabloids, influencer drama, even memes. Its goal isn't clarity, it's traction. To resist it, pause before reacting. Ask, who benefits from my anger? Verify the source. Step outside the frame. Anger is natural, but manipulation is engineered. Not everything that outrages you deserves your attention. And sometimes, silence is power. Number 53. The status quo anchor. This is just how things are. It's a sentence that sounds stable but can be suffocating. That's the status quo anchor, the pull to keep things the same even when change is needed. This bias favors familiarity over improvement. It assumes that what exists must be working, or at least better than the unknown. So we stick with old systems, old roles, old stories, even when they hurt. You'll see it in families who don't address dysfunction, in organizations that resist reform, in individuals who say, "I've always done it this way." It's not logic, it's fear of disruption. The problem? Anchoring to the status quo can block growth. It can protect injustice. It can trap people in identities they've outgrown. To loosen the anchor, ask, is this still serving me? Or, am I staying here because it's right? Or just because it's familiar? Change doesn't mean chaos. It means choice. You're allowed to revise what once worked. You're allowed to question the way things are. And your truth doesn't owe loyalty to a pattern that no longer fits. Number 54. The belief perseverance loop. You learn something, you believe it, and even when it's proven wrong, it still feels true. That's the belief perseverance loop, when ideas stick even after the facts change. This trick is deeply human. Once a belief is formed, your brain protects it. New information is filtered, twisted, rejected not to deceive, but to preserve stability. Because changing your mind doesn't just mean switching ideas, it means confronting identity. You'll see it when people defend long-debunked myths, or refuse to update their opinions even when shown evidence, or say, "I don't care what the facts say, I still feel this way." Belief perseverance shows up in politics, religion, personal relationships, anywhere emotion meets memory. To break the loop, soften your grip. Say, "Maybe I don't know everything," or "What would change my mind?" Curiosity isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Beliefs aren't prisons. They're tools meant to be sharpened or set down. And the strongest minds can flex. Number 55. The token gesture trap. Someone apologizes, but doesn't change. They donate once, but ignore the cause. They say, "I'm not like that," but behave exactly the same. That's the token gesture trap, when small symbolic acts are used to avoid real accountability. These gestures look good, they feel good, but they often mask inaction. The public post with no private change, the speech without the follow-through, the ally who disappears after applause. It's not always intentional. Sometimes people genuinely want to help, but stop at the surface. Because deeper change takes work, it takes discomfort, and token gestures are easy. You'll find this trap in corporations, politics, and relationships. It creates the illusion of progress, a sense that something is being done when really, nothing's being risked. To spot it, ask, is this act followed by action? And who benefits from this gesture, the cause or the person doing it? Symbolism without substance isn't progress. It's performance. Real change is quiet, unseen, repeated. And those who mean it don't need the spotlight. They just do the work. Number 56. The label game. She's dramatic. He's difficult. They're lazy. Once those words are spoken, it's hard to see the person beneath them. That's the label game, turning a complex human into a single word to control how others see them. Labels simplify. They help us sort the world, but when used strategically, they become shortcuts for dismissal. If someone's labeled crazy, their feelings are no longer valid. If someone's toxic, their boundaries become threats. Labels don't just define, they distort. You'll hear them in arguments, group dynamics, workplaces, even politics, and often they're used not to describe, but to discredit, to silence, to isolate. The problem? Once a label sticks, it shapes perception. People stop asking questions. They react to the label, not the person. And the more we repeat these words, the more real they feel, even if they're unfair. To break the game, resist the urge to reduce. Ask, what's behind this behavior? Or, what might I be missing? You don't have to agree with someone to humanize them. And you don't need to wear the labels others assign you. You are not one word. You are not a category. You are allowed to be whole, even if others want you small. Number 57. The emotional contagion. You walk into a room and feel anxious, even though nothing's happened. You spend time with someone angry and leave feeling heavy. That's emotional contagion, when someone else's mood becomes your own without you realizing it. We're wired to feel what others feel. Mirror neurons, body language, tone, all of it creates a feedback loop. Their stress becomes yours. Their excitement becomes yours. Their pain enters your nervous system like smoke through a vent. This can create deep connection, but also quiet exhaustion, especially for empaths or highly sensitive people. You start absorbing emotions that aren't yours, and over time, it's hard to tell the difference. You'll feel it most around intense personalities, people who dominate the emotional space, even without speaking. Their presence changes the weather inside you, and if you're not careful, you begin to live in their storm. To protect yourself, pause and ask, was I feeling this way before I entered the room? Step outside, breathe, recenter. Emotional awareness is protection. You can care without carrying. You can be open without absorbing, and your peace is not a sponge. Number 58. The us versus them framing. There's our side, and there's them, good and bad, right and wrong. No in between. That's the us vs them framing, a psychological split that simplifies the world but strangles the truth. This tactic divides. It creates identity through opposition. You're either with us or against us. There's no space for complexity, no room for nuance. And once the frame is set, it's hard to step outside it without being seen as a traitor. It shows up in politics, online discourse, family feuds, even friend groups. One disagreement makes you other. One question makes you dangerous. It creates loyalty based not on shared values, but shared enemies. The danger? It makes empathy impossible. You stop listening, you start assuming, and soon, the goal isn't understanding, it's winning. To break the frame, ask, what truth might both sides be avoiding? Challenge binary thinking. Find the middle. You don't have to be neutral, just honest. And you don't need a flag to stand in your own clarity. You are not the side you're told to pick. You're allowed to ask questions. And sometimes, the strongest stance is stepping outside the frame. Number 59. The cancel switch. Someone makes a mistake or says something imperfect, and suddenly they're gone, unfollowed, uninvited, erased. That's the cancel switch, when we respond to harm by flipping the person off entirely. It's tempting, especially in a world that feels full of injustice. The switch feels righteous, fast, decisive, but it's also blunt. It turns complex humans into villains. It treats growth as impossible. It trades repair for silence. You'll see it online. One screenshot, one quote, one moment, and the verdict is passed. You'll feel it in relationships, where one misstep ends everything, with no conversation allowed. Yes, boundaries matter. Yes, harm must be named. But when accountability becomes annihilation, we all lose. We create a culture where no one can learn, because learning requires mistakes and grace. To resist the switch, respond with intention. Ask, is this person trying to grow? Am I reacting or reflecting? Not everyone deserves your energy, but everyone deserves to be seen as human first. You don't have to forget. You don't have to forgive. But if we cancel every imperfection, there's no one left to become better. Number 60. The shame storm. It starts inside. That sudden heat, that sinking chest, that thought, something's wrong with me. That's a shame storm, when a moment of doubt becomes a flood of self-hate. Shame isn't guilt. Guilt says, I did something wrong. Shame says, I am wrong. And once it hits, it's hard to breathe. One small mistake triggers every old wound. Every criticism, every time you didn't feel good enough. This storm can be triggered by a look, a word, a silence, or by your own mind spiraling. You replay the past, you isolate, you get smaller fast. People who've been shamed a lot often carry storms just under the surface, and manipulators know this. They don't need to scream. One phrase, you always ruin things, and the thunder starts. To calm it, speak gently to yourself. Say, this is shame, not truth. Ground yourself in the present. Breathe. Reach out. You are not the storm. You are the sky it's moving through. And shame can't survive long in the light. The more you speak it safely, the less power it holds. You're not broken. You're becoming. Number 61. The misattribution drift. You remember hearing something, but not where. You recall a fact, but forget if it was true. And slowly, you start trusting a memory that isn't fully yours. That's the misattribution drift, when your brain detaches content from its source. We're exposed to so much headlines, voices, ideas that our minds get tangled. We might hear something in a movie, or from a joke, or in passing, and later recall it as fact. Over time, the line between what we learned and what we imagined begins to blur. This trick isn't about lying, it's about how memory stores things. We often remember the message, but misplace the context. A false source can become the foundation of a belief, and beliefs built on misattribution often feel just as strong as the truth. It's especially dangerous in arguments, social media, even childhood memories. I heard somewhere becomes a stand-in for research. I remember you said might be a mix of stories. Truth starts drifting, and we don't always know it. To catch the drift, ask, where did I learn this? Or, is this memory clear or just familiar? Take time to check your facts. It doesn't make you uncertain, it makes you wise. Your memory isn't a courtroom, it's a collage. And clarity starts with curiosity. Number 62. The illusory truth trick. You've heard it before, again and again. And now, it feels true. Not because you've questioned it, but because it's familiar. That's the illusory truth trick. The more we hear something, the more believable it becomes. This trick plays on repetition. Even if something is false, hearing it over and over makes it feel comfortable, and comfort often gets mistaken for truth. Our brains take shortcuts. They use ease of processing, not accuracy, to judge credibility. It's why marketing slogans work, why propaganda repeats, why fake news travels fast. Familiarity builds trust, even when facts don't follow. You might believe a myth simply because you've heard it a lot. You might agree with a statement you once questioned because it's echoed in your environment. The trick isn't in the words, it's in the volume. To guard yourself, slow down. Ask, have I actually looked into this, or does it just feel true? Repetition doesn't equal research, and comfort doesn't mean clarity. The truth doesn't need to be loud to be real. It just needs to be met with an open mind. Number 63. The false memory flicker. You swear you remember it. The color of the room, what they said, how it made you feel. But when you check, the details don't match. That's a false memory flicker, when your mind creates a memory that didn't happen exactly as you remember. Memory isn't a video file, it's a reconstruction. Every time you recall something, you rebuild it. Fill in gaps, smooth out edges. Sometimes, insert details that were never there. And the more emotionally charged a moment is, the more likely your brain tweaks the frame. It's not about deception, it's about protection. The mind prioritizes meaning over accuracy. So if a memory helps you make sense of something, it might be reshaped just enough to fit the story you're already telling yourself. You'll see this in family conflicts, trauma recovery, even eyewitness reports. People feel certain, but certainty isn't proof. Memory can feel real and still be wrong. To hold your memories gently, ask, what's the feeling here and what are the facts? You're allowed to honor your emotions without turning them into evidence. Memories are meaningful even if imperfect, and truth can live beside mystery. Number 64. The dissonance dance. You believe you're honest, but you told a lie. You value kindness, but you snapped in anger. Now, your mind starts dancing. That's cognitive dissonance, the tension between who you think you are and what you just did. This discomfort is sharp. We want to see ourselves as consistent. So when actions and values collide, the brain tries to resolve it, not always by changing the action, but by rewriting the belief. I only lied to protect them. I snapped because they pushed me. We create justifications to ease the gap, even if it means distorting truth. This is the dissonance dance. It keeps our self-image intact, but at the cost of awareness. And the longer we avoid the tension, the more tangled our thinking becomes. You'll see it in all kinds of behavior, defensiveness, blame, denial, not because people are bad, but because they're trying to stay whole. To step out of the dance, name the dissonance. Say, I acted out of alignment, and I want to understand why. That doesn't make you flawed, it makes you real. Growth isn't about never slipping. It's about noticing when you do and moving forward with honesty. Number 65. The sunk cost slide. You've put in so much already. Time, money, effort. So even if it's not working, you keep going. That's the sunk cost fallacy, the tendency to stay committed just because you've already invested. It shows up everywhere. A job you hate, a relationship that's drained you, a degree you no longer care about. You say, I've come this far, I can't quit now. But that mindset slides you deeper into loss. The truth is, past effort doesn't justify future pain. What you've spent is gone. What matters is whether it's still worth continuing. The fallacy tricks you into thinking walking away equals failure, when often it's wisdom. You might fear regret, or judgment, or admitting the path didn't turn out like you hoped. But staying just to avoid feeling waste creates more waste. To shift, ask, would I choose this again today? Not based on history, but based on now. That's your compass. Quitting isn't weakness, it's recalibration. And sometimes, letting go is how you reclaim your time. Number 66. The ego protection reflex. You receive feedback and instantly, your body tenses. You hear a gentle critique and a wave of defensiveness rises. That's the ego protection reflex, your mind's automatic shield against anything that threatens your self-image. This reflex isn't evil, it's primal. It's your brain trying to keep you safe, emotionally safe. The ego wants to believe it's capable, worthy, right. So when something challenges that belief, even gently, the instinct is to push back, defend, reject, justify. You might feel it when someone points out a mistake, or when you're asked to consider a new perspective. Your inner voice jumps in, they don't understand. You're just being attacked. You're fine the way you are. and maybe you are. But when that reflex becomes automatic, growth shuts down. You'll notice this in conversations that escalate too fast, in debates that feel personal too soon, in that invisible wall that rises when someone says, "Can I offer you something?" To soften the reflex, try curiosity before defense. Ask, what if this isn't about me being wrong, but about me getting better? You don't have to agree with every critique, but you don't have to fear them either. Your worth isn't fragile. You can hold your center and still let in new light. Number 67. The confirmation spiral. You believe something, so you search for it, and everything you find seems to prove it. That's the confirmation spiral, when you only seek evidence that supports what you already believe. It feels satisfying. You type in a question, and the answers all agree with you. You talk to people who think like you, read sources that align with your views. Over time, your belief gets stronger, not because it's more true, but because it's been fed. This spiral narrows your world. It makes opposing views seem foolish. It turns learning into echoing. And the deeper you go, the harder it is to see outside the lens you've built. You'll see it in politics, religion, even health choices. Not because people are closed-minded, but because certainty feels safe, doubt feels dangerous. To stop spiraling, challenge yourself. Ask, what would the opposite view say? Seek information that disagrees with you, not to change your mind, but to expand it. Truth rarely lives in extremes. It lives in contrast. Your mind is strong enough to hold multiple ideas, and wisdom grows where questions are allowed. Number 68. The framing filter. 2 headlines. One says, 90% survival rate. The other says, 10% chance of death. Same numbers, different feelings. That's the framing filter. The way information is presented changes how we perceive it. Framing works by emphasizing certain angles, words, or emotions. It doesn't change the facts, just how we feel about them. A fee sounds worse than a membership. Saying you failed feels harsher than you didn't pass. And this filter shapes our decisions far more than we realize. You'll find it in advertising, journalism, politics, even everyday conversation. It's not always manipulative sometimes. It's subconscious. But once a frame is set, it's hard to unsee. It becomes the lens we interpret everything through. The danger? We often respond to the frame, not the fact. And someone who controls the framing controls the conclusion. To see clearly, ask, how else could this be worded? What are they emphasizing, and what are they leaving out? Language isn't neutral, and awareness is power. You don't have to reject the message. Just learn to look around its edges. Because truth often hides in what's not said. Number 69. The selective attention trap. You're told to count how many times the ball is passed, and you completely miss the person in the gorilla suit walking through the scene. It's not a trick, it's your brain. That's the selective attention trap, when focus blinds you to everything else. Our attention is limited. We can only hold so much, so we filter, prioritize, zoom in, and that's useful until it isn't. When you focus too hard on one detail, you miss the whole picture. When you expect to see something, you miss what's unexpected. You'll notice this in arguments. You're listening, but only to reply. Or when you're researching and only notice what proves your point. You think you're aware, but you're only aware of what you chose to see. This isn't a flaw, it's a function, but it can be manipulated. People can direct your attention to a problem, so you ignore the root. Highlight one flaw, so you miss the pattern. To escape the trap, practice stepping back. Ask, what might I be missing? What isn't being talked about? Sometimes, clarity doesn't come from looking closer, but from looking wider. You don't have to see everything. Just don't assume what you see is all there is. Number 70. The mental shortcut maze. You meet someone with glasses and assume they're smart. You see a clean design and assume quality. You hear a confident tone and assume truth. That's the mental shortcut maze, the quick judgments your brain makes to save energy. These shortcuts, or heuristics, help us function. They keep us from overthinking every decision, but they also lead us into bias, error, and assumption. When we follow the shortcut too closely, we miss the longer, more accurate path. You'll see it in snap impressions, in stereotypes, in impulse buys, in misplaced trust. The faster your brain moves, the more it relies on these quick rules. And in a world of speed, most people don't stop to question them. The maze deepens when these shortcuts are rewarded. You trust your gut, and it works once, so you trust it again. You avoid discomfort and feel relief, so you keep avoiding. But not all that's fast is wise. To exit the maze, build small pauses. Ask, what's my instinct and what's the evidence? Choose moments of reflection over reaction. You don't have to slow down everything, just the things that matter. Your mind is a marvel, fast, adaptive, intuitive. But even the smartest minds need rest stops. Number 71. The intent projection trick. They say something cold, dismissive, or maybe even kind, and without realizing it, you fill in their intention. That's the intent projection trick, when we assume what someone meant instead of asking. It happens fast. Someone makes a face, and we decide they're annoyed. Someone forgets to reply, and we assume they're ignoring us. Or someone helps us, and we wonder what they want in return. Our brain doesn't wait for clarity. It fills in gaps with fear, history, or past pain. This trick isn't always malicious. Sometimes we're protecting ourselves. If you've been hurt before, your mind might project that onto others, not to judge, but to stay safe. But projection blocks connection because you stop hearing what's said and only react to what you imagine. You'll see this in relationships, friends, partners, co-workers. You say, I know what you meant, before they finish. And sometimes you're right, but often you're not. To soften this reflex, pause and ask, what else could this mean? Or better, ask the person. You don't have to read minds. You just have to stay curious. Intent isn't always visible, and your story isn't the only one in the room. You deserve clarity, and so do they. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do is not assume. Number 72. The comforting lie. It'll all work out. Everything happens for a reason. Good things come to those who wait. We've all heard them. That's the comforting lie. Words that feel warm, but may not be true. These phrases aren't always harmful. Sometimes they soothe, they fill silence, they offer hope, but they can also prevent action. They can lull people into passivity, delay hard truths, and turn reality into something we postpone rather than face. You'll see this in toxic positivity, when someone's struggling, and instead of listening, we say, "Just stay positive." It's well-meaning, but it invalidates. It shuts down deeper conversation. And sometimes, it's not meant to help the other person. It's meant to protect ourselves from discomfort. The comforting lie is easy. The uncomfortable truth takes courage. It says, "This is hard, and it might stay hard for a while." Or, "We don't know how this will end." That truth can feel colder, but it also frees us. To respond, don't reject all comfort. Just check where it's coming from. Ask, is this truth or avoidance? Hope doesn't require denial. And support doesn't mean pretending everything's fine. Real comfort makes space for reality. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can say is, "I don't know, but I'm here." Number 73. The time distortion loop. 5 minutes feel like an hour. A whole year disappears in a blink. And some moments stretch endlessly. That's the time distortion loop, when our perception of time bends based on emotion, memory, or attention. Time isn't just clocks and calendars. It's sensation. When you're anxious, time drags. When you're distracted, it vanishes. When you reflect on the past, some memories feel far away, others still alive. This loop creates confusion, regret, nostalgia, disconnection. You might say, "Where did the time go?" Or, "Why does this moment feel so long?" The truth is, your brain edits time. It doesn't record it evenly. And when you live on autopilot, you stop noticing the present so it doesn't get stored. This trick matters because when time feels warped, so does meaning. You might undervalue the present, cling to a past that felt richer, or fear a future that seems too fast. To rebalance, bring attention back, touch something real, breathe, ask, "What's happening now?" You can't stop time, but you can return to it. You are not your past pace. You are not your imagined future. You are here, and this moment is enough. Number 74. The optimism bias. You plan a trip and assume perfect weather. Start a project and assume no setbacks. Meet someone new and imagine the best. That's the optimism bias, the belief that things will go better for us than they realistically might. This trick isn't always bad. Optimism fuels hope, resilience, action, but unchecked, it leads to poor planning, risky decisions, and blind spots. You underestimate obstacles, overestimate success, and when life hits harder than expected, you feel betrayed. You might ignore warning signs because it'll work out, delay preparation because things usually go fine, and confuse hope with certainty. This bias shows up in finance, relationships, even health. People think, "It won't happen to me," but life doesn't follow optimism, it follows complexity. To stay grounded, balance hope with preparation. Ask, what's the best case and the realistic one? Optimism can guide your attitude, but strategy protects your path. You can believe in good without ignoring the hard, and cautious optimism is still optimism. Number 75. The "I'm fine" mask. They ask how you are. You smile and say, "I'm fine." But inside, you're not. That's the "I'm fine" mask, the habit of hiding pain behind politeness. We wear it to avoid burdening others, to keep peace, to protect our image, sometimes even to convince ourselves that we're okay. And over time, the mask sticks. You forget how to answer honestly. You get used to pretending. This trick can feel noble, strong even, but it disconnects you from others, from yourself, because no one can support the version of you they don't see, and silence doesn't equal strength. You'll feel it in small moments when your voice tightens but you say nothing, when your eyes water but you look away. You don't have to break down, but you also don't have to hide. To begin peeling the mask, start with honesty in safe places. Say, "I'm getting through," or "It's been a bit heavy lately." You don't have to share everything, just something real. Being honest isn't being weak, it's being whole. And "I'm fine" doesn't have to be your forever answer. Number 76. The emotional burnout loop. You keep showing up, helping, listening, carrying, but each day you feel more tired, more distant, more hollow. That's the emotional burnout loop, when giving too much for too long becomes a slow collapse. Burnout isn't just physical, it's emotional exhaustion. You stop feeling joy. Compassion turns mechanical. Even simple tasks feel overwhelming. And when your inner world is running on empty, the outside world becomes louder, harder, colder. The loop begins with good intentions, care, responsibility, love, but without recovery, those intentions become weight. You keep giving, even when you have nothing left. And when no one notices, you give more, just to prove you're still okay. This pattern is common among caregivers, empaths, overachievers, people who confuse self-sacrifice with self-worth. You say yes, smile through pain, and call it strength. But deep down, you're fading. To break the loop, pause, ask, "What's left for me?" Set a boundary, rest before you're empty. You are not weak for needing a break. You are human. And healing requires space. You don't have to earn rest. You don't have to justify needing less. And your worth is not measured by how much you endure. Number 77. The toxic positivity mirage. Just be positive. Good vibes only. Everything happens for a reason. These words sound kind, but sometimes they sting. That's the toxic positivity mirage. The pressure to stay cheerful, even when you're in pain. It's not about optimism, it's about denial. This trick tells you that hard feelings are wrong, that if you're sad, something's broken, that you should smile no matter what's going on inside. And when you can't, you feel like a failure. Toxic positivity silences people. It says, "We only want your joy, not your grief." And slowly, your struggles go underground. You stop talking. You start pretending. And loneliness grows behind that forced smile. You'll hear it from friends, online influencers, even your own inner voice. But positivity that dismisses pain isn't light, it's a mask. To escape the mirage, make space for both, joy and sorrow, gratitude and anger. Say, "This is hard, and I'm still hopeful." Let your truth breathe. You don't have to feel better to be worthy. You don't have to shine to be seen. Real light makes space for every shade. Number 78. The negativity bias. You receive 10 compliments and 1 critique, and that one sticks. That's the negativity bias, the brain's tendency to focus more on what's wrong than what's right. This bias evolved as survival. In ancient times, missing a danger could be fatal, so we learned to prioritize threats. But today, it means good moments fade quickly, while bad ones echo. You might remember an awkward interaction for days, replay a harsh word for weeks. Even when life is mostly okay, your mind keeps scanning for the one thing that isn't. This trick shapes relationships, confidence, even memory. A good day can be ruined by one small failure. And over time, you start expecting the worst, not because it's true, but because it's what your brain is trained to hold on to. To soften the bias, notice the good, not in a forced way, but gently. Name what went right. Celebrate small wins. And when negativity rises, ask, is this the whole story or just the loudest part? Your mind isn't broken. It's trying to protect you, but you can teach it that safety also lives in joy. Number 79. The repetition effect. You hear a phrase once, then again and again. Soon, it feels true, even if it isn't. That's the repetition effect, when repeated exposure makes an idea feel more accurate. This trick is subtle. It doesn't rely on evidence. It relies on familiarity. The more often we hear something, the easier it is to process. And the easier it is to process, the more we assume it's true. Advertisers use this, politicians, propagandists, but it also happens in families. You're always like this. You're the dramatic one. You never follow through. You start to absorb the script, not because it's honest, but because it's been said enough. The repetition effect doesn't care if something's kind, helpful, or even accurate. It just favors what's frequent, and over time, repetition becomes belief. To counter it, check the source. Ask, do I believe this because it makes sense, or because I've heard it too often? Choose what stays. Rethink what repeats. Not every loud thought is true, and repetition isn't evidence. Truth doesn't need to shout. Number 80. The confidence illusion. They speak with certainty. They look you in the eye. They don't pause, stumble, or question. So you think, they must be right. That's the confidence illusion, mistaking bold delivery for actual knowledge. Confidence is persuasive. It gives the impression of authority. And in a noisy world, we often follow the loudest voice, not the wisest one. We think, if they believe it that strongly, it must be true. But conviction isn't the same as accuracy. This illusion shows up in debates, leadership, even misinformation. A confident tone bypasses your doubt. It quiets your questions, and sometimes it silences better voices that speak more softly. You might trust a person who never admits mistakes over someone who thinks out loud. But humility isn't weakness, and self-doubt isn't ignorance. Often, the most careful thinkers are the ones still asking questions. To see through the illusion, ask, Do they offer evidence or just energy? Trust your own thoughtfulness. Confidence is compelling, but truth doesn't always wear a suit. You're allowed to trust your quiet wisdom, and certainty isn't always a sign of clarity. Number 81. The free will paradox. You make a choice. Order a drink, pick a career, say yes or no, and it feels like you chose it freely. But did you? That's the free will paradox, the unsettling possibility that your choices might not be entirely yours. You were shaped by culture, family, past experiences, biology. You were nudged by what you saw, what you feared, what you never even noticed. So, when you say, "I chose this," what part of you chose and what part was pre-written? This paradox doesn't mean you're a robot. It means your free will may be less free than you think. Your preferences were molded long before you could name them. Your beliefs, conditioned before you ever questioned them. And yet, it feels so personal. That's what makes the illusion powerful. You feel like a pilot, when you might just be following coordinates already set. So what's the point if choice is shaped? It's this. The moment you notice the pattern, you change it. Awareness creates space, and in that space, something new becomes possible. You don't have to be fully free to choose with clarity, and questioning your freedom might be the freest act of all. Number 82. The simulation hypothesis. You wake up, you breathe, you think, but what if none of this is real? What if you're inside a vast program designed to feel exactly like reality? That's the simulation hypothesis, the theory that our entire existence may be artificial. This idea isn't just sci-fi. Some physicists, philosophers, and computer scientists take it seriously. The argument? If civilizations can create ultra-realistic simulations, and if they're curious enough to run them, then statistically, we're more likely to be inside one than outside. What you see, hear, feel it all could be code, consciousness, could be data, the stars above, just pixels, the memories you carry, simulated inputs, and the strangest part, you can't prove otherwise. This thought can be dizzying, disorienting, but it also offers a strange kind of freedom, because if life is a simulation, it means meaning is something you create, not discover. And maybe that's always been true. To live fully inside a maybe simulation is to live fully, period. Your pain still matters. Your joy still echoes. Your choices still shape the world, simulated or not. Whether real or rendered, you are here, and this moment is yours. Number 83. The mirror of guilt. You see someone upset, and you assume it's your fault. You remember something from years ago, and the shame returns. You apologize, even when no one asked. That's the mirror of guilt, when your inner critic reflects blame that was never yours to carry. Guilt can be healthy. It reminds us when we've caused harm. But sometimes, that guilt becomes a mirror, showing you distorted images of your past, your worth, your impact. You begin to feel guilty just for existing. This trick shows up in people pleasers, trauma survivors, highly empathetic souls. You say sorry when someone else makes a mistake. You take responsibility for moods you didn't cause. You feel like you're always on trial and always losing. The mirror works by using your compassion against you, and the more you care, the more you absorb. To soften it, pause when guilt rises. Ask, did I really cause this, or am I just reacting to their discomfort? Replace automatic apologies with grounded questions. You are allowed to feel, without always blaming yourself for what you feel. Guilt can guide, but it shouldn't imprison. And sometimes, the thing that needs forgiveness is how hard you've been on yourself. Number 84. The choice paralysis. You're staring at a menu, or a list of job offers, or just trying to choose what to say next. And the more options you see, the harder it gets. That's choice paralysis. When too many possibilities stop us from deciding at all. Our brains love options until they don't. Every new choice brings potential, but also fear. Fear of missing out. Fear of regret. Fear of choosing wrong. And so, we freeze. This trick shows up everywhere. You overthink what message to send, what course to take, even what to wear. You delay. You circle back. You open new tabs, but don't click. And when you finally make a decision, you doubt it. Because in the back of your mind, another option might have been better. It's not laziness, it's overwhelm. And often, it stems from perfectionism, the idea that one choice holds everything, and anything else is failure. To break the paralysis, limit the field. Choose from 3, not 30. Ask yourself, what do I want right now, not forever? Or say, there is no perfect choice, only the next honest step. Freedom isn't about endless options. It's about moving gently through the fog of too many. And even a small step is a kind of power. Number 85. The hidden self-game. There's the version of you the world sees, the one you perform, the one you protect, and then there's everything else, the parts you hide. That's the hidden self-game, when you bury parts of your truth to stay safe, accepted, or in control. This isn't always conscious. Maybe you were taught that vulnerability is weakness. Maybe you've been punished for being real. So you learn to split, to show the parts that please, and silence the parts that don't. You smile when you're hurting. You agree when you're unsure. You become a role, the achiever, the caretaker, the calm one, and forget the person underneath. But hiding isn't the same as healing. And over time, the mask gets heavy. You might even forget what's real, what you want, what you feel, because when hiding becomes habit, authenticity becomes distant. To return, start small. Ask, what part of me have I been editing lately? Or, who would I be if I wasn't performing right now? Let one truth rise, just one. Share it with someone safe, or even just with yourself. You don't have to be fully exposed, but you deserve to be whole. And the self you've hidden is still waiting for your permission to come home. Number 86. The illusion of control. You press the elevator button twice, thinking it will come faster. You change your seat on a plane for luck, or you prepare endlessly for something that's mostly unpredictable. These are small moments, but together they reveal something bigger. That's the illusion of control, the comforting but misleading belief that we have more influence over outcomes than we really do. This bias plays on our need for certainty. When life feels unpredictable, the mind invents patterns. It convinces you that preparation equals protection, or that worry equals control. We feel safer when we're doing something, even if that something has no real effect. Superstitions, rituals, even over-planning, they all serve the same emotional purpose: to reduce discomfort with the unknown. The illusion becomes dangerous when it blocks acceptance. You might blame yourself for things you never controlled, or stay in a situation too long, believing if you just tried harder, you could fix it. But effort doesn't guarantee results, and control doesn't always exist where we think it does. To reclaim peace, start by asking, what's truly in my hands right now? Let go of what isn't. And when things don't go your way, it doesn't always mean you failed. Sometimes, it just means life is doing what it does, moving, shifting, unfolding without full permission. Number 87. The puppet master fallacy. When someone wrongs us or something chaotic happens, there's a subtle urge to look for who's pulling the strings. Maybe it's the government, a manipulative partner, a hidden force behind the scenes. That's the puppet master fallacy, the belief that every outcome is caused by someone deliberately controlling events. It's a comforting idea in disguise. If someone is in control, then the world isn't random. Even if the controller has bad intentions, at least there's a reason. But most of life doesn't work this way. People aren't always scheming. Circumstances aren't always designed. Much of what happens is the result of many small, chaotic forces, not a mastermind. This fallacy often leads to blame and paranoia. It makes you feel watched when no one's looking, controlled when you're simply reacting to life's natural mess. And when this belief becomes chronic, you start seeing patterns in everything, even where none exist. The truth is harder. Sometimes, no one's pulling the strings. Sometimes, life just happens. That's not hopeless. It's honest. And in that honesty, you can find actual agency. You may not control everything, but you can control your response, your awareness, your choices moving forward. Number 88. The observer paradox. In quantum physics, there's a strange principle. The act of observing something changes its behavior. It's called the observer effect. But this idea doesn't just live in science, it lives in psychology too. The observer paradox is the realization that being watched, judged, or simply perceived changes how we act. You behave differently when someone's in the room. Your tone shifts when you're being recorded. Even in private, the imagined gaze of others can influence your decisions. This isn't just social pressure, it's identity construction. We often perform who we think we are, based on who we think is watching. Over time, this can create a disconnect. You might start mistaking your observed self for your real self. You act kindly, not because you feel kind, but because kindness is expected. You present confidence, not because you feel it, but because it earns approval. The performance becomes the mask, and the longer it stays on, the harder it is to remove. To step out of the paradox, spend time in solitude, without audience. Ask yourself, who am I when no one's watching? That quiet version of you might feel unfamiliar at first, but it's likely the most honest. Number 89. The uncertainty fog. You want to make a decision, but the facts are unclear. You want to feel prepared, but the future won't cooperate. So you stay still, overthink, loop. That's the uncertainty fog, the mental haze created by too many unknowns, not enough anchors. Uncertainty isn't always the problem. It's how our minds respond to it. When the path isn't visible, we tend to imagine the worst. Our brains crave control, so in the absence of information, we fill in the blanks with fear, doubt, or spiraling what-ifs. This fog makes even small decisions feel paralyzing. Ironically, the more you try to fight the fog to force answers where none exist, the thicker it gets. You research endlessly, seek reassurance, delay action, and still, no clarity. Because sometimes, life doesn't clear up until you start walking. To navigate the fog, accept that full visibility is rare. Ask, what can I do with the information I have? Choose a direction, even gently. Progress clears the mist faster than perfection. And even if you can't see far, each step forward reveals just enough for the next one. You don't need all the answers. You just need the courage to begin. Number 90. The authenticity illusion. Be yourself, they say. But who is that, really? Is it the version of you that fits in, or the one that stands out? That's the authenticity illusion, the idea that there's a fixed, pure version of you waiting to be found. We often treat authenticity like a destination, as if one day you'll finally discover the real you, and everything will make sense. But the truth is more complicated. You change moment to moment, year to year. What felt honest yesterday might not feel true today, and that's not being fake, that's being alive. This illusion traps people in rigid self-concepts. You say, that's just how I am, and stop growing. Or you pressure yourself to always be authentic, even when you're evolving. You confuse consistency with integrity, and in doing so, lose flexibility. Authenticity isn't about staying the same, it's about staying honest. It means showing up as who you are, right now, not who you were last week, or who others expect you to be. It's messy, it shifts, but it's real, and no one gets to define it but you. There is no perfect version of you to unlock, only the unfolding one. That's already enough. Number 91. The persona mask. Every day, you play a role. At work, you're responsible. With friends, you're the funny one. Around family, maybe you shrink, or maybe you lead. That's the persona mask, the version of yourself you present to meet the world's expectations. Carl Jung called it the persona, and it's not inherently bad. We all wear masks to navigate social life, but when the mask becomes too rigid, it stops being a tool and starts becoming a trap. You begin to believe the role, and worse, you fear what might happen if you take it off. You might avoid sharing struggles because you're the strong one, or you downplay your achievements because you're the modest one. Over time, the real you with contradictions, doubts, and depth gets edited out. To soften the mask, start noticing when you're performing instead of connecting. Ask, am I doing this to be accepted or because it's true to me? Authenticity doesn't mean exposing everything. It means being honest enough with yourself to know when you're pretending. You're more than your role, and you deserve relationships where the real you doesn't need to wear armor. Number 92. The dream delusion. We all carry dreams, futures we imagine, lives we almost lived, but sometimes those dreams start to distort the present. That's the dream delusion, when your vision of what could be makes it harder to accept what is. This illusion isn't about ambition, it's about attachment. You hold on tightly to a version of life that hasn't happened, the perfect job, the ideal partner, the someday scenario where everything makes sense. And slowly, the dream becomes a measurement. If reality doesn't match it, you feel behind, incomplete, like you failed at something that never even existed. You'll know you're caught in it when you keep saying, "Once this happens, then I'll be happy." Or when every choice gets compared to a fantasy. The real world starts to feel grey, not because it's bad, but because it's not your imagined one. To loosen the grip, try gratitude not as a task, but as a shift. Ask, what parts of my dream are already quietly here? You don't have to let go of your vision. Just hold it gently with room for life to surprise you. Dreams are meant to guide, not govern. And sometimes, the life you're missing is already in your hands. Number 93. The what if abyss. What if you fail? What if they leave? What if everything goes wrong? That's the what if abyss, when your mind gets trapped in imagined futures and forgets the present completely. Worry uses what if to prepare you, but most of the time, it doesn't protect, it paralyzes. You plan for things that haven't happened. You suffer in advance. And while the worst case scenarios spiral in your head, life is still happening around you, unexperienced. This loop is fueled by fear. The brain believes that imagining every danger will somehow keep you safe. But that safety is an illusion, because the future will never cooperate with your plans exactly. And worrying doesn't prevent pain, it just creates it early. To quiet the abyss, ask yourself, what's real right now? Bring your attention back to breath, to touch, to the next small step. You don't have to fix the future. You just have to return to the present. You're not weak for feeling anxious, but you don't have to live in a storm that hasn't started. This moment is quieter than you think. Number 94. The narrative fallacy. We crave stories. We want events to make sense. We want to believe there's a reason. That's the narrative fallacy, the bias that forces random events into a story-shaped explanation. This happens after failure, when we say, "It just wasn't meant to be," or after success, "I knew all along this would happen." But most of the time, life isn't so linear. It's messy, contradictory, unpredictable. Still, our minds try to fit it into a neat beginning, middle, and end. You'll see this in how we interpret other people's behavior too. Instead of accepting complexity, we say things like, "They changed," or "They were never who I thought they were." The nuance gets lost. The story gets simplified. To push back, embrace uncertainty. Ask, is this explanation helping me, or just making me feel more in control? Sometimes, it's okay not to have a story. Sometimes, the most honest answer is, "I don't know why that happened." Your life isn't a movie. It doesn't need to be tidy, and meaning can exist even without a script. Number 95. The meaning vacuum. There are moments when life feels hollow, when nothing excites you, when every task feels mechanical and every question echoes. That's the meaning vacuum, a psychological space where purpose feels absent and everything feels like a loop. This isn't depression, necessarily. It's existential drift. You're not in crisis, but you're not inspired either. You wonder why you're doing what you're doing. You scroll for hours, chase distractions, but nothing quite lands. It's not burnout. It's something quieter, the slow erosion of connection to what matters. This state can arrive after reaching a goal, or after loss, or simply without reason. And that's what makes it hard. You can't fix what you can't name. You just feel adrift a little more each day. To begin restoring meaning, shift from seeking purpose to creating moments of presence. Ask, what makes me feel awake even briefly? Meaning doesn't have to be grand. Sometimes it's found in making something, helping someone, or just noticing beauty where you hadn't looked before. You don't have to solve your whole life overnight. You just need one thread to pull, and eventually, that thread becomes a path. Number 96. You recall a moment clearly, vividly, but later find out it never happened the way you thought. That's the illusion that your memories are reliable when, in reality, they're often constructed stories. Memory feels like a recording, but it's not. Every time you remember something, your brain recreates it, influenced by emotion, context, even your current beliefs. Details shift, faces blur. Emotions get exaggerated or softened, and still, you believe it's true. This becomes dangerous when old wounds are remembered with absolute certainty, even if key pieces are missing or misinterpreted. You may misremember what someone said, or even how you felt, and yet your brain insists, this is exactly how it happened. To navigate this mirage, approach memory with humility. Ask, what do I know for sure, and what might I be filling in? Memories are meaningful, but not infallible. And holding space for uncertainty doesn't weaken your story, it softens it. You're not lying to yourself. Your brain is just doing what it does best, constructing. And sometimes, healing begins with the words, I may never know the whole truth, and that's okay. Number 97. You imagine the perfect life, the dream job, the ideal partner, the version of you that's finally there. But the more vivid it becomes, the more distant your current life feels. That's when the life in your head makes the present feel like it's not enough. This trap doesn't start in pain, it starts in hope. You create a version of the future where everything makes sense. It becomes a goal, then an expectation, then a measuring stick, and slowly, now begins to feel like a waiting room. You begin to resent the slowness of reality. You feel impatient, even when things are going well. And when life doesn't match the fantasy fast enough, you spiral not because anything's wrong, but because you've trained yourself to live in what's next, not what's here. To escape the trap, check in with the present. Ask, is this moment already holding part of the future I want? Often, it is. And when it's not, progress isn't made in leaps. It's made in choices, stillness, even rest. The future isn't a place you arrive. It's a direction you walk one step, one breath, one moment at a time. Number 98. You look at your life and ask, what does any of this mean? It's not sadness, exactly. It's not anxiety, either. It's something deeper, quieter. That's when your mind reflects back the question, beneath all questions. Why am I here? This moment often comes uninvited during grief, a breakup, a quiet walk home. You realize that beneath the goals and routines, something is still unanswered. And the scariest part? There might not be an answer. This isn't a flaw in the system. It is the system. Life doesn't come preloaded. With meaning, we bring it. We build it. We choose it. And sometimes, we lose it, only to find it again in places we never expected. To sit with the mirror, stop rushing for a conclusion, ask smaller questions. What feels honest today? What matters, even briefly? You don't need to find the purpose. You just need to feel connected to a moment, a person, a piece of beauty. Meaning isn't static. It shifts, disappears, returns, and the mirror only reflects back what you're brave enough to ask. Number 99. There's a voice in your head that says, "You're overreacting. You're too much. No one really cares." And the worst part? You believe it. That's when the world's doubt becomes your inner dialogue. It begins quietly. Maybe someone dismissed your feelings. Maybe you were told to calm down one too many times. Over time, you internalize that dismissal. You begin doing the work of your critics for them, questioning your worth, your needs, your memory. This trick is cruel because it's self-sustaining. You doubt your gut, which makes you feel weak, which makes you distrust yourself even more. And soon, your inner world becomes hostile not from others, but from your own voice. To break this gaslight, listen for your default reaction. Do you silence yourself before you even speak? Do you explain yourself more than you need to? Ask, would I say this to someone I love? If not, don't say it to yourself. You are not too much. You are not broken. And your mind deserves to be a place of truth again. Number 100. The mind's final trick. After all the theories, illusions, and hidden habits, the biggest trick your mind plays is simple. It tells you there's something wrong with you for having a mind that does all this. That's the mind's final trick, the shame of being human. You learn about biases, fallacies, manipulations, and instead of feeling informed, you feel defective. You say, why do I think like this? Why do I always fall for it? But the truth is, you're supposed to. This is what the human brain does. It protects, distorts, hopes, fears. It messes up and learns. It seeks patterns in noise and comfort in meaning. The goal isn't to eliminate these tricks. It's to see them clearly and respond gently. You're not broken because your mind takes shortcuts. You're not weak because you fall for illusions. You are awake now, and that's what matters. So as we close this journey, take a breath. You've wandered through the landscape of the mind, not to fix it, but to understand it. And through understanding comes peace. There's nothing wrong with you. There never was.